The ships arrived without warning in Earth's upper sky, silent and enormous like floating cities made of metal and light. People on the ground first thought they were meteors, but within minutes, every nation's sensors confirmed the same truth: something not human had entered their world. On the largest vessel, far above the clouds, Captain Soren stood before a wide observation screen. His armor was smooth and dark, designed for efficiency rather than appearance. Around him, his officers watched rotating displays of Earth's military data. The room was bright with cold blue light, and every surface reflected quiet confidence. Soren read the reports again, though he already knew what they would say. Human history. Human wars. Human weapons. It all looked simple. Too simple. He let out a short laugh and turned slightly toward his officers. "These are the defenders of this planet?" he asked. One of the officers, a tall man named Larek, gave a small nod. "Yes, Captain. Their records are public. Primitive systems. Short-range weapons. High emotional dependence in combat." Another officer added, "They tell stories of single soldiers holding entire positions. One human against dozens. It appears to be myth-making." Soren shook his head slowly. "Every weak species does this. They turn fear into stories. They make their past sound stronger than it was." A few officers chuckled. The mood in the room was relaxed, almost bored. They had fought across many systems, against species that were fast, clever, or cruel. Compared to those, Earth looked unimportant. No advanced shields. No interstellar weapons. No signs of unified global defense networks that could threaten their fleet. The system labeled Earth as low-risk contact, meaning no serious military threat expected. A minor diplomatic engagement. A resource check. A formality. Soren leaned closer to the display. Images of Earth's battles filled the screen, black and white footage of soldiers running through smoke, trenches filled with mud, armored vehicles moving slowly across broken land. He studied them carefully. "They still fight like this?" he said. "Yes," Larek replied. "They rely on numbers and morale rather than precision systems." Soren gave a thin smile. "Then their legends are just comfort stories. They believe courage replaces strength." The officers around him nodded. It was a familiar pattern. Many younger species wrote exaggerated tales of bravery before they fully understood real warfare. It helped them feel less small in the universe. Soren turned away from the screen and walked toward the central command chair. "Prepare standard contact procedure," he said. "No aggression. No need to waste resources." He paused, then added, "But observe closely. I want to see how they behave when they realize how far behind they are." On Earth, the sky changed color in ways people had never seen before. Governments activated emergency channels. Military bases went silent for a moment as radar confirmed the presence of multiple massive objects in orbit. Within hours, communication was established. A human station in Geneva transmitted the first reply. Words were simple, calm, and controlled. Earth was not panicking outwardly, though inside every command center tension was rising like a storm held behind glass. Among the selected liaison officers was Mark Hill. He was assigned to represent Earth's unified response team during first contact operations. He was not the most famous soldier. He was not the highest ranked. But he was known for something more important: he did not panic easily. Soren's voice returned. "Your military history suggests heavy reliance on mythic interpretation of warfare. Do you confirm this?" Mark glanced briefly at the analysts behind him. Some of them frowned. Others remained still. He answered calmly. "We confirm our history as recorded. Interpretation is part of understanding events." On the alien ship, Soren tilted his head slightly. "Interesting wording." He turned to his officers. They do not deny it. Larek smirked faintly. They are careful with pride language. That usually means insecurity. Soren nodded. Yes. They are aware of their limitations. Back on Earth, Mark continued speaking. We request that your forces maintain orbit position and avoid entering controlled airspace until joint protocols are agreed. Soren replied immediately. We will comply. We have no intention of interference. We are here to observe a developing species and confirm their status. The word developing was not hidden. It was not meant to be hidden. Mark heard it clearly. His expression did not change, but something behind his eyes sharpened slightly. Understood, he said simply. The connection remained open for a few more seconds. Neither side spoke. Then Soren ended the channel. In the alien command room, the officers relaxed again. The first contact had gone exactly as expected. No resistance. No confusion. No hidden strength. Soren stepped back toward the observation display, where Earth's surface slowly rotated beneath them. Blue oceans, scattered cities, thin layers of atmosphere glowing under sunlight. Primitive world, one officer said quietly. Soren did not argue. He only watched. Below them, Earth continued its normal life, unaware that it had just been judged in silence. Prepare observation units, Soren ordered at last. We will study their behavior before formal engagement. His voice carried certainty. The agreement for a joint demonstration was made within hours. The aliens wanted it fast, simple, and controlled. They did not see a reason to delay what they believed would confirm their judgment of humanity. A large training zone was prepared on Earth's surface. It was built in an open desert region, surrounded by monitoring stations and sealed observation fields. From orbit, it looked like a small square cut into the planet itself. Alien troops arrived in specialized transport pods that landed without sound. Their armor was lighter than expected, but every movement they made suggested control and discipline. They walked out in perfect formation, scanning everything at once. Their eyes tracked distances, angles, and probabilities in real time through built-in systems. Human forces arrived shortly after. They did not look as uniform. Their equipment varied slightly between units. Their movements were less rigid, but more natural. Among them stood Anna Reed and Ben Carter, leading the human side of the simulation. Both had been selected not for strength alone, but for adaptability. Captain Soren observed from an elevated command platform. He stood with his officers behind a transparent barrier overlooking the field. This will be short, one officer said. Soren did not answer immediately. He was watching the humans more carefully than before. They did not look as fragile as expected, but he dismissed the thought quickly. Appearances meant little without performance. The simulation began. A neutral signal passed through the field, and both sides activated their systems. The terrain shifted instantly into a controlled combat environment, buildings rising from the ground, barriers forming, pathways changing shape. It was designed to test strategy under uncertainty. The aliens moved first. Their coordination was immediate and flawless. Each soldier seemed to know where every opponent would be before they moved. Their prediction systems calculated angles, speed, and likely decisions in real time. Within minutes, they had control of key positions. Human units were pushed back quickly. Several positions were lost in the first phase. On the human side, communication channels filled with rapid updates and adjustments. Anna Reed spoke calmly, even as they retreated. Do not fight their predictions directly. Change movement patterns. Break rhythm. Ben Carter nodded. We stopped being predictable. Human soldiers began to shift. Instead of holding exposed positions, they started using irregular movement paths. They moved through broken structures, changed direction without pattern, and used terrain features in ways not immediately obvious. At first, it did not change much. The aliens still dominated. Their systems adapted quickly. Whenever humans moved, the alien prediction models adjusted and countered. On the observation platform, one alien officer laughed quietly. "They are improvising," he said. "But improvisation without structure is inefficient." Soren watched silently. Below, human units were now losing fewer positions, but still struggling. They were not winning. They were surviving. Anna adjusted her approach. "We stop reacting. We start misleading." Ben looked at her. "How far?" "Far enough that their predictions become wrong," she said. Human teams began doing something unusual. They moved with intent that did not always match action. They created false signals, fake retreats, and deliberate delays. Small groups separated and regrouped unpredictably. Instead of attacking directly, they shaped the battlefield into confusion. The aliens noticed it. At first, they believed it was random failure in human coordination. But as time passed, something changed. Their prediction systems began to show small errors. Not large enough to threaten control, but noticeable. On the platform, Soren narrowed his eyes slightly. "Adjust prediction sensitivity," he ordered. "It is already at maximum accuracy," Larek replied. Soren paused. Below, the humans were not stronger. They were not faster. But they were becoming harder to read. Still, the aliens maintained advantage. They pushed forward again, reclaiming control of multiple zones. Their precision strikes forced human teams into defensive clusters. Ben Carter's voice came through the human channel. "They are always one step ahead when we are direct." Anna replied, "Then we stop being direct at all." Human units began using terrain in more aggressive ways. They triggered structural changes in the simulation environment to block sightlines. They used timed movements that depended on delays rather than speed. They coordinated actions that only made sense after several steps, not immediately. It created confusion. Alien soldiers began missing optimal engagements. Not often, but enough to slow their advance. Their systems started recalculating more frequently, trying to understand human intent. One alien officer frowned. "Their behavior is inconsistent." Another replied, "Humans are unstable in combat. It is expected." But Soren was no longer fully convinced. He watched as another human unit slipped through what should have been a perfect interception zone. The prediction system had calculated it correctly, but the humans had changed direction at the last possible moment, based on something that was not visible in data. It was not randomness. It was timing. Human coordination began to improve. Slowly, they were no longer reacting to alien moves. They were shaping them. On the field, Anna moved with her unit through a collapsed structure. Dust filled the air. Visibility dropped. The aliens attempted to lock them down using sensor prediction fields, but human movement patterns became irregular again. Ben spoke quietly. "They are adjusting slower now." Anna nodded. "Good. That means they are thinking too much." On the observation platform, Soren finally spoke. "They are not using consistent tactics." Larek replied, "It appears to be luck-based adaptation." Another officer added with a faint laugh, "They are surviving by accident." Soren did not laugh. He watched a human squad move through what should have been a guaranteed interception point. The aliens had predicted 3 possible paths. The humans took a fourth, one that was not listed in the system because it was created by delaying movement until the last fraction of time. It should not have mattered. But it did. The alien formation had to adjust. Just slightly. Just enough to lose efficiency. Soren's gaze sharpened. Below, Anna and Ben continued coordinating. Their units were still behind in score and control, but the gap was no longer increasing. It was stabilizing. That was new. Human forces were not winning. But they were learning. And for the first time since contact, the aliens were no longer completely certain they understood what they were watching. The next phase of the demonstration was not meant to test fairness anymore. It was meant to confirm a belief. The aliens decided to recreate human battle scenarios. Not simple ones, but the most famous conflicts recorded in human history. They selected engagements where humans had supposedly survived against overwhelming odds. To the alien commanders, these were the clearest examples of myth-making. Stories repeated so often that even humans might have started believing them. Inside the simulation chamber, the environment changed again. The terrain shifted into multiple historical settings: urban ruins, frozen valleys, dense forests, and broken cities layered into controlled digital reconstruction. Each scenario was designed to push participants into familiar human-style warfare situations. Captain Soren stood above the central control deck, arms folded behind his back. His officers moved around him, adjusting parameters and loading simulation templates. "This will settle it," one officer said confidently. "We will show that their so-called legends fail under direct reproduction." Soren did not answer immediately. He only watched as the system loaded the first recreated scenario. Human forces were briefed quickly. Anna Reed and Ben Carter were assigned command again. They reviewed the simulation parameters and immediately understood the intent. Anna's expression stayed calm. "They are not testing us anymore," she said quietly. "They are testing their opinion of us." Ben nodded. "Then we do not fight the story they want. We fight what is actually in front of us." The simulation began. The first recreated battle was a city defense scenario. Narrow streets, collapsed buildings, limited visibility. Alien troops were placed in overwhelming numbers with superior equipment. Human forces were given historical equivalent limitations, matching the original recorded conditions. The aliens expected immediate collapse. Instead, humans adapted faster than anticipated. Anna moved her unit through collapsed structures instead of defending open ground. Ben coordinated small groups to create layered resistance instead of a single defensive line. They did not attempt to hold everything. They held only what mattered. Alien troops advanced as predicted at first. Their formations were precise, their firepower overwhelming. But as they pushed deeper into the city, something changed. Human resistance did not break. It shifted. The aliens began encountering resistance where none should have been left. Flanking routes were disrupted. Supply paths were blocked. Communication lines became unreliable. One alien officer frowned. "Their remaining forces are reorganizing faster than expected." Another replied, "They are copying historical defensive behavior patterns. It should not be effective at this scale." Soren watched closely. "Continue." The simulation progressed. The aliens pushed harder, expecting the humans to eventually collapse under pressure. But instead, human units began reversing small sections of control. Not by force, but by timing and coordination. Ben spoke over the channel. "They are predictable in structure, not in intent. Use that." Human teams started baiting alien advances into narrow zones. They used collapsed paths and delayed engagements to isolate enemy groups. What looked like disorder was actually controlled movement. For the first time, alien troops began losing units in ways that were not anticipated by the simulation model. On the control deck, Soren's expression remained unchanged, but his eyes were sharper now. "This is not matching recorded human capability," an officer said. Soren replied calmly, "Adjust probability margins. Increase model precision." The system was recalibrated. The simulation was rerun at higher predictive sensitivity. The second recreated scenario began. This time it was a frozen battlefield, designed to replicate a historical siege where humans were believed to have failed quickly. The aliens expected even faster collapse. Instead, humans stabilized almost immediately. Anna and Ben adjusted their strategy from the start. They did not attempt to defend large areas. They created small mobile resistance points that shifted constantly, never allowing full targeting locks. Alien prediction systems struggled to keep up. At first, Soren dismissed it again. Environmental instability, he said. Cold terrain affects signal consistency. But the explanation felt weaker this time, even to his own officers. Human forces were no longer just surviving. They were controlling engagement flow. In one section of the simulation, a human unit deliberately retreated, drawing alien forces into a confined zone. The aliens followed confidently, expecting an easy elimination. Instead, the zone collapsed structurally, isolating multiple alien squads. The simulation recorded unexpected human advantage in that sector. On the control deck, silence grew heavier. An officer muttered, "That should not be possible under reconstructed conditions." Soren's voice remained controlled. "It is a simulation artifact. Reset local parameters." But inside him, something was beginning to shift. Not doubt yet. Not acceptance. Just pressure. Below, in a quiet observation room away from command attention, an older human figure stood watching a separate feed of the simulation. His name was Ethan Blake. He was not part of active command. His status was listed as historical advisor. He did not wear combat gear. He did not speak during operations. Most alien personnel barely noticed him. But Ethan watched everything. His eyes moved slowly across data streams, battle overlays, and timing patterns. He did not react to victories or losses. He only observed structure. The simulation chamber changed without warning. One moment, both forces were engaged in controlled scenarios. The next moment, the entire system froze. Lights across the battlefield shifted from neutral blue to sharp red. A deep warning tone echoed through every communication channel, both human and alien. Then came the message. High difficulty locked simulation engaged. Exit disabled. For a brief second, no one spoke. On the alien command deck, confusion broke out immediately. "This was not scheduled," one officer said quickly. Another checked the control interface. "We did not authorize this level of difficulty." Soren stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "Check system integrity." But the system did not respond normally. It behaved as if something deeper had taken control of the simulation layer itself. The environment outside the platform also changed. The terrain below shifted again, becoming more complex, more unstable. Structures rose and collapsed in slow cycles. Visibility dropped as atmospheric distortion increased. On the battlefield, alien troops felt it first. Their movement systems began showing delays. Prediction interfaces flickered. Tactical overlays lost clarity. Communication channels filled with static interference that should not have existed in a controlled environment. Panic started slowly. "This is not normal simulation behavior," one alien soldier reported. Another voice came through, strained. "Our exit protocols are disabled." On the human side, confusion also appeared, but it was different. Humans did not freeze. They adjusted quickly, looking for structure in the chaos. Anna Reed spoke first. "Stay calm. This is still a system. It can still be read." Ben Carter looked around as terrain shifted unpredictably. "But it is not following normal rules anymore." Before more could be said, a new presence entered the human command channel. A voice, calm and controlled, replaced standard communication lines. "Human units, report status." It was not an automated system voice. It was human. Anna paused. "Who is this?" The voice answered simply. "Ethan Blake." For a moment, there was silence. Ethan had not been active command. He had been observing from behind layers of monitoring stations. But now, the system had shifted into a state that required direct leadership input. And Ethan stepped forward without hesitation. His presence appeared on the human command network as he connected to the central control link. No ceremony. No announcement. Just immediate integration. "I am taking command," he said. There was no argument. No debate. The moment his voice entered the system, something changed in human coordination. It was not technology. It was recognition. Anna Reed responded instantly. Command transferred. Ben Carter followed without hesitation. Copy. All units, aligned to Ethan command structure. Human forces reorganized in real time. Ethan's voice remained steady. Listen carefully. This system is not random. It is layered. It will test predictability, pressure response, and decision timing under instability. He paused briefly as he analyzed shifting battlefield data. Do not react to surface conditions. React to structure beneath it. Human units began adjusting again. Their movements became more precise, not in speed, but in intention. They stopped chasing immediate survival patterns and began focusing on controlled positioning. On the alien command deck, confusion had turned into concern. "What is happening on the human side?" one officer asked. Soren did not answer immediately. He was watching Ethan's command input closely. Something about it felt different. Not advanced technology. Not external interference. Experience. Below, alien troops were struggling more visibly now. Their systems were failing to stabilize. The locked simulation had removed many automated escape layers. They were forced into raw engagement conditions. Panic spread further. "We cannot disengage," a soldier reported. "All exit pathways are blocked." "This should not be possible," another voice said. Soren finally spoke. "Focus. Maintain formation. Identify system control source." But even as he spoke, he could see something changing in human behavior. It was no longer adaptation. It was structure rebuilding. Ethan continued giving instructions. Left flank, reduce exposure by 30%. Do not hold ground longer than 8 seconds. Rotate movement groups in cycles. Break visual prediction loops. Each instruction was simple, but precise. Human soldiers followed instantly. Anna and Ben relayed commands across units. Follow Ethan pattern. No deviation. And something unexpected happened. Human forces stabilized inside the chaos. Not by overpowering aliens, but by controlling timing inside unstable conditions. Ethan's voice came again. "This simulation is not new to me," he said quietly. On the alien side, Soren's expression changed slightly. Ethan continued. "Earth has faced systems like this before. Not exactly the same. But similar in function." He paused. "And worse." For the first time, alien officers looked uncertain. "What does he mean by worse?" one asked. Soren did not answer. Ethan's voice remained calm, but carried weight that was not emotional, it was memory. "I served in classified Earth operations," he said. "What you call border conflicts are only partial records. They were not standard wars. They were containment events." Human soldiers listened in silence while still moving under command. Ethan continued. "Some threats do not fight like armies. They do not follow patterns. They test systems, break structures, and force adaptation beyond normal training limits." He looked at the shifting battlefield. This simulation is close to those conditions. On the alien command deck, Soren felt a subtle shift in understanding. Not acceptance. Not yet. But recognition that something had been missing from their analysis. Larek spoke quietly. So they're legends. Soren interrupted. Not legends. His voice was lower now. Field reports. Below, alien forces attempted another coordinated push. It failed within seconds. Human units had already anticipated the movement, not through prediction systems, but through structural reading of behavior cycles. Ethan adjusted commands slightly. Now. Compress center. Force them into predictable lanes. Human units responded immediately. The battlefield tightened. Alien formations began losing flexibility. Their advantage in raw prediction was collapsing under timing disruption. Soren watched, silent now. The system was still locked. But control was no longer clear. And for the first time since arrival, the aliens were not observing humans. They were reacting to them. The locked simulation continued to burn across the battlefield like a system that refused to end. The environment was unstable now, constantly shifting between broken terrain states, collapsing structures, and shifting visibility fields. Both sides were forced to fight without escape, without reset, and without external correction. But the difference between the two forces had become clear. Under Ethan Blake's command, the human units were no longer reacting. They were controlling the flow of the entire simulation space. Every movement had purpose. Every withdrawal created pressure. Every advance forced a reaction that could be predicted not by machines, but by experience. Ethan stood at the center of the human command network, his voice steady and calm. He did not shout. He did not rush. He spoke like someone who had seen this kind of chaos many times before. Maintain rotation cycles, he said. Do not allow static contact. If they lock onto you, you are already in the wrong position. Human units followed instantly. Anna Reed relayed commands across groups, while Ben Carter adjusted field positions with fast coordination. The humans were no longer scattered. They were functioning like a single structured system shaped by discipline rather than technology. On the alien side, things were collapsing in a different way. Their prediction systems, once flawless in earlier stages, now produced constant errors. Not large errors at first, but small ones that built into failure. Every time they attempted to anticipate human movement, the humans changed structure at the last possible moment. Not randomly, but with intent that the system could not fully map. This is not possible under simulation logic, one alien officer said in disbelief. Another replied, their decision timing is outside predictive tolerance. Captain Soren stood still on the command deck, watching everything unfold. His arms were no longer folded. His posture was rigid, focused. For the first time since arrival, he was not confident. Below, alien troops attempted to regroup. They formed tighter formations, increased sensor output, and pushed prediction systems to maximum sensitivity. But instead of gaining control, they lost more ground. Human units used controlled disruption. They did not fight directly against strength. They shaped engagement space so that alien systems always reacted one step too late. Ethan's voice continued calmly through the human network. They are relying on prediction models, he said. So remove predictability. Do not repeat movement cycles longer than necessary. Then he added something quieter. And remember, they are not used to opponents who have survived without perfect information. On the alien side, Soren finally stepped forward. Stop calling it error, he said sharply. Analyze pattern deviation. Larek tried again. We are analyzing. The deviation is not random. It is structured. That statement created silence. Structured deviation meant intent. Not malfunction. Not chaos. Soren looked down at the battlefield again. Human forces were now pushing forward in coordinated layers. Each layer supported the next. When one group advanced, another reshaped the environment behind them. It created a constant pressure system that did not allow alien stabilization. The aliens attempted a full-scale counter-push. It failed within moments. Not because of firepower imbalance, but because every alien advance was absorbed, redirected, and broken into smaller segments where coordination collapsed. Soren watched one entire formation lose structure without ever being fully destroyed. It simply stopped functioning as a unit. His expression tightened. "This is not improvisation," he said slowly. "It is doctrine." On the battlefield, Ethan adjusted one final sequence. "Now compress their remaining mobility zones," he ordered. "Force decision overload. They will begin to self-interrupt." Human units executed immediately. The terrain shifts that once helped aliens now worked against them. Movement paths narrowed. Escape options reduced. Communication overlap increased confusion inside alien ranks. Alien soldiers began hesitating. Then failing. Then breaking formation. Soren saw it clearly now. The aliens were not losing because of stronger weapons. They were losing because their systems were designed for enemies that behaved within known parameters. Humans were no longer inside those parameters. And perhaps, Soren realized, they never had been. A final surge attempt from the alien side collapsed almost instantly. The system registered widespread alien operational failure across all active zones. Then, suddenly, everything stopped. The simulation froze. The locked environment dissolved into neutral space. Terrain collapsed into blank structure. Combat overlays disappeared. Both sides were held in silence as the system processed termination. Then the message appeared. Simulation complete. No victory was assigned at first. No ranking. No classification. Just silence. On the alien command deck, no one spoke immediately. Soren stood still, staring at the empty battlefield projection. His officers waited for him to say something, anything. But for a long moment, he did not. The confidence that had filled the ship at arrival was gone. Not replaced with fear, but with understanding that was heavier than fear. Finally, he spoke. "Run full analysis," he said quietly. Larek responded. "Already running, Captain." Soren nodded slightly. Seconds passed. Then minutes. The analysis returned slowly. Layer after layer confirmed the same result. Alien prediction systems had failed not because of error, but because the input behavior exceeded all modeled conflict structures. Human decision timing did not match any known warfare template. The data kept returning the same conclusion in different forms. Unpredictable but consistent. Adaptive under system collapse. Structurally survivable behavior patterns. Soren read it silently. Then he looked back at the human forces on the display. Ethan stood in the center of them, unmoving, calm. Not celebrating. Not reacting. Just present. Soren finally understood something he had refused to consider earlier. Earth's history was not exaggerated. It was compressed. Survival, repeated so many times under impossible conditions, had turned into patterns that looked like myth only to those who had never faced similar pressure. The so-called legends were not stories told for pride. They were records of outcomes that should not have been possible, but were achieved anyway. On the human channel, Ethan spoke one final time. His voice was steady, without emotion, without pride. "We didn't imagine those stories," he said. A pause. "We earned them." Silence followed. Not just on Earth. But across the alien fleet as well.